Hello and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then we consider what you know of the news of the day. Malaysia's efforts to reduce our dependence on foreign workers began in the early 2000s with the 8th Malaysia Plan. But as the COVID-19 pandemic has forced many migrant laborers to leave the country, the government is now testing whether the economy can run with fewer foreign workers than we have in the past. Now, what should policymakers keep in mind when planning Malaysia's long-term foreign labour policy? Let's ask our first guest today. Faisal Arif is an associate researcher at the think tank The Centre. Faisal, you wrote a really interesting three-part paper about developing better migrant labour policies and some of the trade-offs that are involved with potential solutions. And I'm just going to cite one of the arguments that you put forth. You wrote that the trap of boom and bust cycles, the way we keep repeating waves of fresh recruitment of foreign workers, and then we later, mass roundups and then expulsion of them. I was wondering whether we could begin there. Maybe you could talk a little bit about this reactive approach to policy making.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Sharad. Thanks for having me on. We've been doing this for a very long time. So it's not just the past 10, 20 years or so. We looked at about 140 years of migrant policy in Malaya and Malaysia. And it's always been like that as far as the records can go. We would have massive intakes during economic booms. We looked at, just before the Great Depression, there was like a very huge influx of migrants from China and also India to the point where the Federated Malay States were actually majority Chinese. And this was back in the 30s. So it's not like something very, very new that's only happened in the past 10, 20 years. It's something that we've persisted doing for a very, very long time. So yeah, breaking that habit will take a lot of effort.
Right. Because, the colonial scenario is somewhat different, I guess, from the one that, comes with independence. And the concerns now, because it's the modern economy, our aspirations, are going in one direction, and the realities on the ground apparently in an opposite direction, including, the talk of premature deindustrialization, right? So I wonder if you can help us understand what's driving this policy. Because you use very cheekily, you say Groundhog Day when it comes to policy making in Malaysia. And I wonder if, say for instance, the exploitative recruitment system, which is massive, is actually what's driving policy, that the stakeholders involved in corruption and the loopholes and so on and so forth that you outlined really is the baseline for policy making in this country.
Yeah, I mean, let's unpack that. The first bit is basically sort of what's driving what's been happening recently. And we can go back to, I think, the 1980s. We had an economic recession. And I think you can read it on Tun Mahathir's blog. It's still on there for, I think, a posting from 2014. Basically, we had a policy whereby we wanted to be the cheapest manufacturer around to attract foreign direct investment into the country. So that was, the motive was there. And it was to address unemployment. And Tun Mahathir said that we did such a good job at that, we started solving the unemployment problems of neighboring countries as well. Indonesia had a policy at one point to send their unemployed, nationals over to Malaysia to work, right? Now, as you pointed out, Sharad, suddenly a lot of people figured that you can make a lot of money doing this. And I was very disturbed to find out that the average Bangladeshi worker gets indentured to the point of about 20,000 ringgit just to come to the country, just to come to Malaysia. And they end up, those who have assets sell their land and whatnot, but a lot of them just come with debt. They come as indentured workers, and the interest rate is about 7% per month. I don't think these people understand compound interest. At the end of a 5-year period, they'll owe 1.1 million ringgit. And if they're earning 1,000, 2,000 ringgit a month, there's no way in heck they have a cat's chance in hell of ever generating any savings in the
Faisal,
country. Yeah.
that information that you found out about, Bangladeshi workers being indentured, is that public knowledge? I mean, I'm just wondering about data, about baseline data in policymaking. How policymakers, how can they make good and evidence-based policy if information like that is not, I guess, taken into consideration?
Sure. By the way, it's not just Malaysia. If they want to go to the UAE to work or any other country, it's going to be 20,000 ringgit, thereabouts, or 5,000 US dollars, right? And these are in published sort of like papers that I can share with you afterwards, perhaps. And yeah, it is indeed very, very exploitative, as you pointed out. The thing is, a lot of people in Malaysia, or employers or policymakers rather, they feel like that's not our problem. Unfortunately, it is our problem, because if the migrant worker comes to Malaysia very, very indentured, if they have no way of paying off that indenture, what's going to happen at the end of their visa period? They won't go back with their tails between their legs, as it were. They'll continue working in Malaysia illegally if they have to, in order to pay off a debt they can never repay. So it is very, very tragic and very, very sad.
Faisal, if we could just turn to the final part of your three-part essay about what can be done. I mean, you say it's going to be tough, but could you just outline for us the elements of what will be a game changer in foreign labor recruitment?
Sure. I wrote a few things down. First of all, we've mentioned no indenture, right? Make sure that foreign workers who come here, all migration expenses are fully paid for by the employer. And we've seen this recently, Top Glove paying off a huge chunk of change to their workers in order to pay off their migration expenses, and add up to like something like 14, 15,000 ringgit each or something like that, right? Which is a lot of money, right? So we want to make sure that the foreign workers who come to Malaysia, they have a mathematical prospect of generating savings. That will ensure that when time comes, their visa period is over, 1 year, 2 years, whatever it is, they will return home to their home countries because they've achieved their objective, right? The second thing that I think is very, very important is that wage deductions shouldn't. So typically, the most bizarre thing that I read was that, first of all, the agent will tell the migrant worker, hey, like it's going to cost X amount to come over to Malaysia. You owe me that amount. The same agent will then tell the employer that, hey, it's going to cost 20,000 ringgit to bring this person over. Employer pays the agent. Then the worker will be indentured to the agent once, and the employer will say, hey, I spent 20,000 ringgit to get you here, I'm going to deduct it off your wages. So in the end, you hear this story so many times. Migrant workers are promised to get paid X amount per month, but the reality is they get paid a whole lot less. So apart from any statutory deductions and whatnot, they should be paid exactly every penny that they are promised. Apart from that, use economic forecasting instead of these silly quota systems that we've got right now, based on the number of pigs you might have, a number of cows you might have, or how many acres of estate land you have. Instead, look at where the economy is going. All right, what are the trends? Yes, I hear industry saying that they need how many thousand workers, but rationalize that. Look at where the economy is going, and make sure that we are in lockstep with sort of like the cycle. What we want to avoid is sort of like overhiring during good times, and doing all this expulsion sort of like things that we do during bad times, and then suddenly bring them back to the year after. And that's exactly what's happening right now, by the way. We had this mass expulsion last year, and then suddenly this year we're signing all these memorandums and things. And Sharad, you hit the nail on the head. There are a lot of people who benefit financially, from this. There's a lot of corruption going on. I can speak about it now because I think there was a Public Accounts Committee thing that I think Nurul Izzah was on a few years ago. Basically, large amounts of money was paid to certain ministry officials to approve something called special approvals, right? That bypasses the usual recruitment system. That needs to stop. It needs to be very, very transparent. You can't have this, you know, shadowy way of getting workers into the country. So that's got to stop. Whether it will stop, I don't know. Apart from that,
Right.
yeah.
Faisal, just sorry to interrupt, but you said that we're in this, you're seeing a repetition of this
Yeah.
cycle once again, that, with all the MOU negotiations about to be signed. Has there been no change of thinking on the part of government that you've noticed because of perhaps the way we're dealing with a post-pandemic recovery? Has there been anything to indicate that there might be a recalibration in the way Malaysia might approach foreign worker policy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a cynic on this, Melissa. I think it's all about money. You make more money recruiting fresh migrant workers from the source country than you do from regularizing the existing foreign workers you already have in the country. And I think that there has to be sort of like a tier system, right? You want to hire Malaysians first. You want to, second, you want to extend the visas of existing foreign workers in Malaysia. Thirdly, you want to regularize illegal foreign workers in Malaysia. Fresh migrant workers should be a last option. And it's a little frustrating to see that they're going to bring in fresh workers rather than focus on making the illegal workers that we have in the country legal. Because, as I said before, a lot of them have become illegal not because of their own intentions, but because of exploitative practices. So I think it makes a lot more sense, although it makes less money for a lot of people, to look into the existing pool that we have in the country first, making sure that we make them whole, and then start looking at fresh labor. But I'm not running the government, so
Well,
Sadly.
Faisal, yeah, Faisal, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We
Lovely.
appreciate your insights
Thanks.
and you
Yeah.
explaining your paper to us. Thank you. That was Faisal Arif from the think tank The Center. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, thanks so much for staying with us on Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris, with me, Sharad Kutin. If you've just joined us on the show, we're discussing how to develop better foreign worker management policies now as the economy looks to restart and recover pandemic. Let's talk to Associate Professor Dr. Yusuf Shari. He's a labor market economist. Yusuf, so, Malaysia's been trying to reduce dependence on foreign workers since the early 2000s. I believe it was the 8th Malaysia Plan. And we still have one of this as one of these goals in the 12th Malaysia Plan. I'm just wondering whether we've been at all successful in these past 2 decades to reduce our dependence. And if we have been, what exactly has worked? And in your opinion, what has not?
Thanks, Melissa, for the questions, and also thanks for inviting me for this program. Yes, my view is that we should reduce foreign labor dependency. Yeah, if we trace our Malaysian plan, for the past Malaysian plan, actually, the intention of the government to reduce the foreign dependency was started in ninth Malaysian plan. Yeah,
Okay.
Nine Malaysian plan, especially if I can briefly explain what has been included in nine Malaysian plan, 10 Malaysian plan, 11 Malaysian plan, and 12 Malaysian plan. Just very brief. Yeah, in
Okay.
nine Malaysian plan, we already started. We want to shift the technology from the labor intensive to the technology intensive, and we want to focus on high value added. So by focusing or transform this economy to the to technology intensive, by hoping that we can reduce the foreign labor dependency. Okay, on 10 Malaysian plan, we have introduced multi-tier levy. Yeah, this is the price mechanism that we want to use as a balancing between local and foreign workers. 11 Malaysian plan, we we mentioned about the levy system, and we mentioned again about the automation, and we want to we want to transform our economy from labor intensive to technology intensive. And then 12 Malaysia plan, the current one, we still levy system, multi-tier levy. So actually, we keep repeating the same thing, yeah, from policy document. So this provide the indication that actually what happened in the ground, what happened to the implementations, what's going on in the policy document, how it was trickled down to the implementation to the various agencies. Yeah, because I'm not saying that we should not or we should reduce totally foreign workers. We welcome foreign workers, but we welcome those who are high skilled, as what has been promoted and what has been implemented by in advanced countries.
Okay, so Yusuf,
We have
Yusuf, can I ask you this?
please go ahead.
Is the issue then not so much the foreign worker dependency, but actually the nature of the Malaysian economy? I mean, these aspirations are great, you know, and a lot of countries, want to go up the International Division of Labor and so on and so forth, but they don't always achieve that, right? So is it the fact that just the economy is not changing in quite the ways that the Malaysian government wants it to change? We are actually getting more jobs that are unskilled, the lower tier, rather than increasing those high-skilled, value-added jobs that you talked about that are in the Malaysian plan. Isn't that the problem?
It's a problem actually, yeah, because from the demand perspective, because we are talking now on the supply side perspective from economic point of view, because labor is a supply side variable. So I mean, when talk about the supply side, so we need labor to produce goods, and then the other part is on the demand side. So those who want to buy the good and services. So in on average, yeah, our economic growth created about 61% of job that relevant for semi-skill and also for low skill. Only about 39% relevant for high skill. And then we have a problem of graduate mismatch, yeah, because they have has implication to the graduate. Okay, just give you some figures. Because now is the people are celebrating graduation, almost all the universities in Malaysia. This is the time usually because it has been postponed for years. Yeah, we produce about 200K of graduates, but the job that the economy created for job that relevant for graduate, I mean, or basically the high skill workers, only 30 but 76K. So there are huge misalignment between what has been produced and what has been demanded or what has been created in the economy. The question is simple, because we are labor intensive economy. Yeah, when we are labor intensive economy, for each of percent of our economic growth, we created more job for semi-skill and for low skill. So if we want to move or you want to correct this issue, so in the long run or at least in the medium term, we have to move, or we have to transform our economy from labor intensive to technology intensive, or from economic, sometimes we call it capital intensive. We could not rely anymore on the labor intensive, because of, if we rely on labor intensive, so we could not compete low cost economies such as Vietnam and China.
Okay,
So we don't have
yeah,
yep.
but Yusuf, is the solution then to restrict the importation of low jobs? I mean, of low skilled workers. If you do that, does it mean that there will be more investment in automation, that there'll be more investment in the kinds of jobs that the country wants? Or are we just going to find ourselves with labor intensive industries constantly in crisis because they don't have enough manpower?
Okay, to answer your questions, yeah, actually, we have three options. I would suggest that three options that we should consider here. Yeah, the first one is we have to empower, and this time we have to be serious to implement multi-tier levy. So multi-tier levy has been successfully implemented in Singapore and other advanced countries. So the unique about this multi-tier levy is that the price or the salary of workers between the local and the foreigners is almost equal. Yeah, and then the economy do not very little amount or very little opportunity the differences between foreign labor and local with respect to the wages. So this will create a harmony in the ecosystem, and also indirectly will reduce the foreign labor dependency. Secondly, this is more long term. Automation and transformation should be there. Yeah, we have, as I mentioned briefly previously, we don't have a choice. We have to move our economy toward automation and transformation. But this cannot be done within one night, one day,
But
1 month.
but
Yeah,
you mentioned just now, Yusuf, that
yeah.
the multi-tier levy has been part of the plan since the ninth since was it what the number 10 Malaysia Plan number 10, and now the 12th Malaysia Plan is still multi-tier levy. Can What is it about this that doesn't seem to be effectively working? I mean, in principle, it seems like the concept is correct, but is it the enforcement? Is it the implementation? I'm just wondering whether this requires reform or a recalibration in some sort. Has there been some industry pushback that has caused this levy not to be as effective as it was conceptualized to be?
We have raised this issue, yeah, Melissa, before RMK on 12 Malaysian plan has been tabled in the parliament. Then over after that, so all the economists claim that the document, the multi-theory, is perfect, but we point out the fundamental issue is the implementations. That's the only thing. If we serious, as I said, if we want to transform our society and our economy, we have to be serious. All the agencies, yeah. But at the same time, because as to be honest with you, bringing foreign workers sometimes is profit a good business for someone else. Yeah, so we have to be realistic from that perspective also. So, but yeah, if we want to transform, I think we have to serious this time. So no
Okay,
more,
so
no more,
Yusuf,
no more. I mean that this is the what you call it, the wake up call. Yeah, serious wake up call.
yeah, Malaysia has
Yes,
many
sir.
wake-up calls. The thing is, some people are on snooze, I think, continually. Now, the last minute that we have, Yusuf, what do you think is going to change the dynamics of this? Is it just political will, or is it something that COVID taught us anything about building back better? Do you see any signs of a change?
In my view, is COVID the bless what brought by COVID-19 is that so we have so many wake up calls, including the foreign workers. So if we don't want to change this time, I'm worried is that we might not have time in the future. So this is the time. If we want to reduce the foreign dependency, this is the time that that at the same time, yeah, we have to be rational to some extent and to be from economic perspective, because we have dependent on the foreign workers so many times, and then foreign worker basically they are not foreign, so-called foreign in our country anymore. You can see everywhere, and they are distributed across all the sectors from agriculture up to in the services. If let's say that we want to reduce the foreign workers, one we cannot say that we have to reduce all the sector equally. It has to be gradual, it has to be selective. Why I said the selective? Because some industries such as agriculture, the nature of foreign workers and local workers, that they are substitutes. I mean that if we reduce foreign workers, we can substitute for local. But for some industry, some industry in particular in manufacturing sectors, foreign workers and local, they are complement to each other. So meaning that if we reduce foreign workers, at the same time, the implication is that we also have to reduce the local workers. So meaning that we have to go very specific, selective. We cannot say that one size fit all doesn't work anymore.
All right. Sorry, Yusuf, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Dr. Yusuf Sari, labor market economist there, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, and good night.